Welcome to the podcast series Talking Success, Connecting the Global FinTech Community. I'm Catherine Brassell, and today we turn our attention to South Africa, where I'm joined by Mark McChlery, who is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer, as well as one of the founders of PayJustNow. PayJustNow is an innovative South African technology company providing a buy now, pay later solution to shoppers. PayJustNow is a payment option designed to ease the burden of debt by allowing shoppers to pay for product as they earn money with no threat of growing charges. Payments are split equally over 3 months, interest-free, with no additional fees, allowing shoppers to receive their purchases as if they paid in full. Hi there, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's got off to a pretty smooth start. Cape Town was showing off over the weekend, so it's now just trying to get back to normal and ease the sunburn.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, hopefully it's been a good start to 2022 as well.
Yeah, I think it's still early doors yet, but it's filled with promise and the expectation to match.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. And we'd love to just hear a little bit more about you personally, your career journey, and really just how you came to the PayJustNow.
We all get to a point where things click into place, and I've had the good fortune of being able to work for a little over 25 years now, giving my age away. But I've kind of been exposed to a pretty broad cross section of industry. Leaving school, starting in sort of like the restaurant industry, I think was fundamental because it teaches you humility and above all how important service is, and selfless services. And I'd recommend that for anybody starting a career is to start off something, in a space that teaches you that humility and how hard it is to work and grind away to get things done. But from there, I've always kind of been sort of focused in either sales and management, but always with a technology slant to it. So I've always been enamored with technology. I'd sort of call myself an early adopter on all things tech. It's the new next shiny bright thing was always there to distract me. But how technology is advanced, I've been fortunate to be able to interact with technology that enables and empowers. And I think, 25 years of loving tech gets you to a place where you can actually use that tech to build something worth building. Kind of went through sort of technology sales, and then ultimately ending that particular run as CEO of an importer and distributor of an OEM, Sharp Electronics, for Certec, which was owned by Deneb Investments. And then after that, I kind of wanted to try something new and had the fortuitous opportunity to get involved with a bunch of mates working on an open source sort of internet code project. And I think fundamentally, I credit having that opportunity to understand open source and how important it is to the world. As a principal motivator, in what I've contributed as a strategy in PayJustNow. I think if you look at anything innovative that has really rapidly changed the landscape or made something better, at the core of it is software that is open source. And I'm sure most of your listeners would be familiar with that term. I think the power of open source is that it's free, it's democratic, it's easy to access, and because of that, it allows anybody and everybody, to be able to use and contribute to make it better. Any innovation of value is taking things that already exist and smashing them together to bend, break, and blend them into something else that's more useful. I think that at PayJustNow, which is where I am, at our office now talking to you from, is kind of the result of 2 decades plus of sort of personal experience and perspective. And more importantly, decades of relationships with people that I work with. I think any decent project is not a one-man show. It's a body of work that you can be proud of, with people that you care about. I think if you wake up knowing that you can go to war with people that have your back, that's very important. The one point I'd like to add on open source is because it is free at the point of distribution.
Yeah.
It removes one of those hurdles that block adoption and engagement and reach and scale. And with the open source concept driving PayJustNow in South Africa is that if we can make PayJustNow available to the consumer without a hurdle, without any friction, without needing, to pay for it or overthink the notion of should I, shouldn't I? It's going to cost me what's it all about? The predicate of that is actually one of the main components of our sort of logarithmic growth from when we've launched to now, in that it is free, genuinely free to the consumer to use. And so that's, mimics the concept of open source.
Mark, talking about the open source platform that PayJustNow is all about, how are you guys really helping South Africans then build their credit scores, and then, of course, empowering consumers on this level?
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of those things that it is what it is, and it always has been. And so who are we to change it? If you need credit, you need to have a good credit score. If you want to participate in the real economy, you need to be able to pay for it, which means you must have money. Or if you don't want to use your free cash, that you then use credit facilities. And I think for as far back as books tell stories, people have lent money or products and then got an interest return on it. And I think in terms of helping South Africans, we've got to take a step back and say, well, what is PayJustNow? Let's talk about PayJustNow. You've got to start with the name. It's PayJustNow. Just now is a South Africanism. Yeah. I think we can agree on that.
Yes.
It's all about just now, and South Africans get that straight away. But by no means was it our invention. We took a globally validated business model that allowed consumers to buy now and then pay later without any fees or interest. The challenge there is that we had to predicate our model on an ostensibly a product that with origins from Australia, where people get paid every week or every 2 weeks, even if you're the CEO. And then so to take that concept and imagine it where it would suit South African consumers, understanding that not only do we pay much higher interest rates in the real economy, but we also get paid monthly, as opposed to every 2 weeks. So I think the concept of fitting it for purpose was very important. That for us to be able to make something available for free to the consumer wasn't really going to be of any consequence if they couldn't use it with any degree of functional utility. And so to empower those consumers, we are providing them with what is effectively a budget tool rather than a credit line. And that budget tool allows them to make those purchases for aspirational or above average value products that they might normally save up for, or possibly even whip out the credit card and, without thinking about it, pay almost 26 or 27% more for that product than they would have if they had the cash or the ability to pay for it in interest and fee-free installments. So I think that as one small measure that's very visible is easy to focus on in terms of what value it brings to the South African consumer. But the other thing is that it allows consumers to engage with products and brands that they like or love. And it gives them an opportunity to buy more of or more frequently from the brands the small businesses that are out there every day opening up the front doors and supplying South Africans with, everything from apparel to technology to clothing. And what that does is it enhances the value proposition to the merchant partner, in that now they're getting increased transaction velocity and value.
Yeah.
And hopefully that manifests in them buying more inventory, opening more stores, employing more staff, and the consequence of that is more people are employed and earning, and that's functionally the real economy. That I think is where we empower the consumer. They don't have to settle for paying fees and costs to get what they want. What they pay is what's on the price tag, and also we're empowering consumers to participate, in the economy more, and hopefully grow that economy. And as a byproduct of all of this action, we report payment behavior to the credit bureaus, and we all know it takes about 5 or 6 years to build up a decent credit score. And so every bit of data that the bureaus are able to accumulate is consequential. And then the thing we're most excited about is that we took a decision early on to automatically assign a PayJustNow facility to consumers who the industry refers to as thin file. And those are people without any credit history. I remember back to my days, when I wanted to get my first cell phone contract, I really had to jump through hoops because I had no credit.
Yeah, of course.
I had to then go and buy open up a Total Sports account and and pay off a pair of Nikes.
Get into more debt, really.
100%.
Yeah.
And those Total Sports invoices came every month, but the envelope was thick with the next brochure of the next best Nike, and before long you start looking at that statement saying minimum balance, minimum payment due, opening balance, closing balance available to buy, and after the third time you're looking at it, all you ever looked at was that available to buy line.
And there was no buy now, pay later option back then either. So
yeah, and you skipped over the fixed monthly fee and the interest fee and this fee, But luckily, I was able to get my cell phone contract. Our drive of allowing consumers with no credit history to use us so that we can report on their behavior hopefully means that by starting earlier than they normally would have, the first time they really need to take out a credit instrument of note, like to buy a car or get a bond, they have 2 or 3 years of transactional data under the belt, and hopefully that puts them 10 or 15 points better on the score when they have to commit to their first really hairy long-term interest-bearing credit product.
And that kind of brings me a little bit to my next question, which is, who are your main target market? And obviously, with the model that you are using, there must be some sort of risk involved in how you're sort of managing that, on your end.
Scott, could you design a video game?
I could make you a hypothetical one. If I took some random genres, mechanics, maybe blended them together and created a new hypothetical game.
Now that would make a great podcast.
Undoubtedly.
So what would you make? Something original and exciting? A Dark Souls city builder? A co-op roguelike?
Everything. All of that. We could use the Nemesis system and put it in a first-person shooter. And we could have a loot system with survival mechanics and motion controls. And maybe you could... I don't know, save a kingdom from some out-of-control toasters. What about party?
Catch the Gaming Blender on all your favourite podcast platforms.
Yeah, I think, in broad strokes, ubiquity is impossible. You cannot be everything to everybody. We kind of understood that the type of consumer that would notice and appreciate the service we offered was a technologically pervasive consumer, somebody that was averse to credit cards, somebody that had pretty much free high levels of disposable income versus their sort of fixed costs. So it's like your typical Gen Z millennial who favored shopping online. for things that they wanted to buy on the fly. And so with that in mind, when we started the journey on PayJustNow, it was available only as a payment option on online e-commerce stores. It was also because we were a relatively small self-funded team at that stage. So e-commerce was just under 2% of the retail GDP sector. We were talking to a class of consumer that understood technology and wasn't scared to load details like bank cards and set up profiles, because they'd run through the mill of that. We had to go through the path of least resistance, welcome. Somebody then ate a bat and COVID was sprung on us.
Here we are.
And the rest, hopefully, is proverbially history, And we saw during that time this really massive shift, to consumers now, because they were forced into their four walls. They were now, going online and consuming information and testing the waters. So erstwhile consumers that might have never done that because I know where to park and I know where the store is, are now looking online, And so we as a country, or even globally, saw this massive sort of growth in e-commerce, and that was fortuitous in that it gave us a really bored, frustrated, captive audience to be able to share our story with. But at the same time, allowed us to, at the merchants that we had on board at that time, is we were able to help keep their businesses afloat, by telling the story of built by South Africans for South Africans, South African consumers that love your brand. This is something that you can use to support your brand through this tough time. And then from there, we saw the momentum sort of generate and evolve. And through that, we also had the time to put our ears on the railway tracks and understand what was going to be important next. And fundamentally, that was being able to accept PayJustNow in store. So, at the end of 2020, just before Black Friday, we went live with our first partner accepting PayJustNow as a payment option at the till. Which hadn't been done in buy now, pay later in South Africa, and it was phenomenally successful. And I think put that down to, we felt confident to do that because we now had a lot more customers or consumers than we expected before the pandemic. But then also realizing that there was a different type of consumer, not necessarily that Gen Z millennial debit card, coffee shop sipping consumer only. It was an established consumer who really understood what a lay-by was, and because there's no fees or interest on PayJustNow, it was a lay-by that was turned on its head, because
now they can have the product.
They could pay like a lay-by, but they could walk out the front door with their product right there and then.
Yeah, amazing.
And that for us was a game changer. That was the next kicker. That saw us hyperdrive to the next level. But also it entrenched us with a brand that every South African recognizes, and it gave us that national reach instantaneously. And luckily for us, and by being aligned with their commercial objectives as a retailer and our objectives to build the PayJustNow brand and consumer base, we were able to branch out and figure out what the next thing coming down the train track was, which we need to build for. And that was that you can't only build products that a big brand can integrate with. So we invested a significant amount of capital and time, and now we've built what is PayJustNow's merchant application. So not only can you download the PayJustNow app from the App Store, but if you're a merchant that works at a market selling products that PayJustNow is an option. You can actually download the Pay Up app, which allows you to process transactions with PayJustNow consumers. So it went from empowering sort of the Gen Z millennial consumer to the consumer who understood the frugality of lay-by. It was through the pandemic assisting small South African businesses tell a story and remain afloat, and then transitioning into being entrenched with some of South Africa's more recognized national brands. That obviously fundamental to the relationship is trust, and by being there and visible with somebody you trust, we can piggyback off that trust, and our job is never to let that break. But now we can empower the small businesses in South Africa to, as quickly as you can sign up for your own PayJustNow profile as a consumer, you can sign up for your own PayJustNow payment option as a merchant. Whether you're a hairstylist or fitting geezers or selling homemade sort of woodwork, the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of open source is the product's there. The product's there, and how you use it is up to you. And I kind of want to emulate that when we talk about PayJustNow from the merchant and the consumer app is we built it, and we built it for you. It's there. Use it how you need to use it in the context of what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's really what gets the juices flowing.
No, for
on our
sure.
side,
And talking about game changers, what do you think? Because obviously you've got your pulse, on the industry. And what would you say is the next game changer that will impact the business? In your opinion.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to err on the side of optimism because we think that's what everybody wants to hear, but the reality is I think that we've got a tough year for the consumer ahead. We've got interest rate hikes being spoken about and bandied on every newspaper and radio station and TV station. So that is going to put an already stressed consumer under more duress.
Yeah. So this will help them.
Well, because interest rates only hurt you if you're paying interest, right? But notwithstanding, though, I mean, it stands to reason that a high interest rate on your bond takes more free cash out of your account too. So I'm not being sort of obtuse about that. I'm just putting a quick plug.
Yeah.
But I think on the horizon, if you follow sort of global chatter and international trends, I think there's the meta commerce world, which is sort of taking off in Europe and the States. I think in 2 or 3 years, the sort of meta mall, that Facebook iteration of the virtual mall. I think that could be a significant sort of future channel. But before that, I think, there's hyper competition between banks, existing banks and emerging banks and new banks and digital banks and
open source banks.
Yeah. And I think banking is important. It always has been, it always will be. But banks are becoming less important. So I think that an empowered consumer who with the benefit of 2 years of forced education, understanding sort of technology, understanding what you can get and how you can get it and how it impacts you, that digital superpower, that the consumer comes out of this COVID tunnel with, I think is going to sort of put a cat amongst the proverbial pigeons, and that you don't have to accept something just because you always have.
Yes. Yeah.
And the agency sits with the consumer. When the consumer realizes that their single voice in a collective is more powerful than anything, it's the voice of the collective consumer that actually tells industry where, why, and how.
Yes.
If they're listening. So I think the fuzzy crystal ball isn't going to really give you anything that your listeners can write down and say, okay, we're going to build that next. But I think the important thing is that anything of consequence happens in the real economy, and the real economy is real people. Real people that earn and spend money. Even if you own a business, you are a consumer. You earn and you spend money back into that real economy. So, I think with all of the pressures, that the economy is going to place on us, we're going to find reasons to innovate. You innovate when something's uncomfortable, and so South Africans are pretty industrious, always have been, and so I'm sure that before we get to the metaverse, so to speak, there's going to be some fundamental changes in how consumers engage with the retail economy.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. And just to sort of round off, it'd be great to understand a bit more about what's on the horizon for PayJustNow. What can you divulge at this point? What can listeners look out for this year?
I'm kind of I'm almost convinced to be Hansel and Gretel here and drop a couple of pebbles along the way. But we're working on some really exciting things.
Awesome.
And I wouldn't give too much away because we've also suddenly woken up and there's a lot of chatter and potential competition in the space.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of companies that we'd originally gone to when we were starting to build PayJustNow, looking for investment, are now starting to build sort of versions of it, which I think we take as a compliment. But I think the important thing for what's next within PayJustNow is to focus on being of more value to our merchant partners, without derogating from the fact that we are wholly aligned with the consumer. And by being wholly aligned with the consumer, we want to broaden the utility that PayJustNow has to offer, in that if it makes sense to use PayJustNow and we're there, then use it. And if it doesn't make sense, then hell fellow well met. We'll see you the next time that you need to use PayJustNow. And it's all about utility. I think I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we built it as a platform, and it's yours to use in the context that you find more useful to you, whether you're a business or a consumer. So, I think that's as far as I want to go. And I just want to say hello to the guys that are sitting on the edge of their seats trying to hear what I was going to say, and to say, have a nice day.
Watch this space. No, that's awesome, Mark. I really appreciate it. I appreciated your time today, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on things and, just looking out for what you guys have ahead this year. If our listeners would like to get hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Super easy. So PayJustNow, you can download it from any app store. Our contact is on email. It's all in the app. support@payjustnow.com gets you into the system. And we have one of those communications structures set up that no matter where you come into the communication wheel, you are seen and visible by everybody who works on the business. So payjustnow.com, download the app, drop us a mail. And it's super easy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, no, Catherine, thank you very much. It was a tremendous honor to be casted on your pod.
Yes. Till next time.
Till next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode, Talking Success, connecting the global FinTech community. Please follow us on LinkedIn under Talent in the Cloud, or if you're interested in exec talent, expanding your FinTech team, or you yourself are looking for an exciting change in your career, please check out our website, talentinthecloud.io.